So a common theme that I'm seeing during this election is that you cannot vote for Donald Trump if you are black, and you must vote for Joe Biden if you are black. And if you are black, you cannot not vote. But nobody's actually talking about policies that will negatively affect black people or positively affect black people. People are simply saying you must vote for Joe Biden because you are black. I have a problem with that because it doesn't factor in a person's brain. It doesn't factor in a person's choice. And really, it's just honestly quite racist because you're asking a person to make a decision solely based on what you perceive their ethnicity and race to be. So you know how you all got offended when someone said shut up and dribble? This is the same thing. They're just telling you to shut up, vote, and be black.
We black out here. We can't come out here and do it any kind of way we want to.
I don't agree with the notion that I have to make a decision based on someone else thinking that I'm black or thinking they know what's best for black people. I don't make decisions based on what anybody thinks that my racial or ethnic background is. I make decisions based on character. And no race has a patent on character.
They were fighting for us to have the right to our opinion, not the right to vote for whoever the white liberals said black people are supposed to vote for. You get what I'm saying? And then James Corden went in and said, well, this president, you're Christian, and this president, I don't see anything Christian about him. I said, okay, so last year y'all tried to tell me who I'm supposed to vote for because I'm black. Now this year, white liberals trying to tell me who I'm supposed to vote for because I'm Christian. That would be like, I live in Calabasas, so everyone in my car's got to be a convertible, huh? Right. It's just all based on y'all vision of what I'm supposed to do. We are in a country where we allowed to like whatever we like.
Jennifer Aniston told people not to vote for Kanye West. Now, let's be honest. White people are not going to vote for Kanye West, and neither are black people. But when she made the statement, who was she talking to? Because at best, Kanye West would get less than 1% of the votes. Do you believe Jennifer Aniston was talking to white people, or do you believe she was talking to black people? You all know that Jennifer Aniston was not talking to Hispanic people, she was not talking to Jewish people, and she was not talking to white people. She was not talking to Asians or Pacific Islanders. She was not talking to Indians, Native Americans. She was talking to black people. And the problem I have with her making the statement is you're telling black people what to do based on what you think black people should do. That is the epitome of white privilege. What has Jennifer Aniston ever done for black people? Who gave her the right to even speak to black people? She tried to hide this whole thing by saying don't vote for Kanye, but clearly she's talking to black people, because if Kanye does an excellent job, he'll only receive 0.0000001% of the votes. This was a post aimed at black people. What they're pushing is for black people to make a decision based on being black. But the flip side to that is who's made a positive decision based on us being black. This is where I talk about flipping the coin over. Everybody wants you to make a decision based on what they perceive your race to be, and that is bondage. That is oppression.
I was sitting in front of white people and they thought, I wouldn't thought you would like Trump because of the racism. So you mean to tell me I make every decision based off my color? The most racist thing a person could tell me is that I'm supposed to choose something based on my race.
We black out here. We can't come out here and do it any kind of way we want to.
You're attacked also in many respects because of your race, because you're not supposed to think like this and talk like this. A lot of white liberals just don't like it, do they?
Well, they're the most racist people there are because, they put you in a little category, a little box. You have to think this way. How could you dare come off the plantation?
How could you dare come off the plantation?
What they're saying is your thoughts, ideas, principles, values, moral, character, none of that ideologies, none of that stuff matters. That's what they're saying. They're trying to reduce you to make your decision based on a color. And to me, that is the epitome of oppression. So they have reduced racism to a social issue. And they've done that so nothing will ever change. We'll keep spinning our wheels trying to gain white approval when the real threat to us has always been an economic one.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. warned us about white liberals, and so did Minister Malcolm X. And they both concluded that sometimes those are the worst.
We black out here. We can't come out here and do it any kind of way we want to.
There's nothing wrong with Jennifer Aniston giving her opinion about politics, but telling people, and specifically telling black people, who they can and can't vote for is absolutely racist, because it's a white person with privilege telling you what's best for you. Now, Chelsea Handler went a bit further. She stayed true to her last name. She's acting like a handler of black men. She said she had to remind 50 Cent that he was black. This is a Jewish woman telling the world that she had to remind a black man that he was black. Do you all see the problem with being black? Do you all see the problem with someone trying to identify, describe, and define you based on a color? If they do that, then that means they can have control over you, because you being black comes with a script. It comes with a narrative. It comes with its own system of bondage, its own system of being controlled.
You heard about my ex-boyfriend, right? 50 Cent, and his support of Donald Trump.
Yeah, what's going on between you? I saw your tweets and I go, wait, what's happening? Because you said he was your favorite ex-boyfriend, and then what does he do? He's supporting Trump?
He says he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes, which, by the way, is in a plan of Joe Biden's. That's a lie.
62%. So let's break that number down. Now, on the income side, on the federal side, there are two basic increases that Biden is proposing. The first is a top rate going from 37 to 39.6%. And then you've got the payroll tax of 12.4% applying to income over $400,000. So half of that payroll tax is paid by employers. So you add those two changes together and you get a new top federal rate of 45.8%. Then you add the net investment income tax and other provisions, and you get a total top rate of 49.6%. So let's go to the state side on top of that. If you live in California, that combined rate would go to 62.6%. New Jersey would be over 60%. New York State would jump to 58%. Not too bad, but New York City residents would see a combined state and federal rate of just over 62%. Now, with tax increases being proposed both in New York and California, those rates would likely go even higher.
So he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes because he doesn't want to go from being 50 cent to 20 cent. And I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook. So I haven't heard back from him yet, but I am willing to, seal the deal in more ways than one if he changes his mind and publicly denounces Donald Trump. I might be willing to go for another spin, if you know what I'm talking about.
Chelsea Handler had the audacity to say this, and none of you all got offended. None of you woke black people out there got offended. In fact, you all repeated what she said. Do you understand that if she can remind 50 Cent that he's black, she can also remind you that you're black, and then she can also remind black people that they're black? Do you understand how that's a problem?
Public policy stayed in effect until, let's say, 1705, for instance. In 1705, it was codified in what we call the slave codes. Mm-hmm. And the slave code said at that time defined how in the future all whites would behave and how blacks would behave. Mm-hmm. And that's why what they call the Southern ethics, where blacks could not challenge whites or raise his hand to defend himself against a white person.
And in fact, white people were told that it was their duty, in fact, to suppress and severely handle blacks in order to enforce the status quo, or they themselves would be considered lawbreakers.
Right. In other words, they violated the code the white code. And see, in that time, what the code said is that every white must enforce this code. Every religious institution must subscribe to it. All levels of government must be responsible to it. Okay, it must be passed on through your social customs, Daryl, and also through your laws. I put a lot of those laws in the back of the book.
Right.
I could not get on TV and tell the world that I had to remind a Jewish person that they were Jewish. Could you imagine if I got on TV and told the world that I had to remind a Jewish person that they were Jewish? I would be destroyed by the media. I would be destroyed by the Jewish community. I would be labeled anti-Semitic. I would be the worst person on the earth if I did that. And then she started selling out even more because she said, I'm willing to take it for another spin. 50 Cent has a girlfriend. He's in a relationship. And none of you black magic women out there got offended by her trying to even insinuate that she could ruin black love. Because 50 Cent is with a black woman.
He can't vote for Donald Trump and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook. So I haven't heard back from him yet, but I am willing to, seal the deal in more ways than one if he changes his mind and publicly denounces Donald Trump. I might be willing to go for another spin, if you know what I'm talking about.
This is what I was looking for, yeah. Oh.
I tell you, playful as a kitten, strong as a bull elephant. Good Lord, man.
I don't buy the pig in the poke.
Carry on like a man. If she buys him, he gonna find out tonight she ain't no man.
Now, normally, you black queens would have got offended by a white woman trying to play home wrecker to a black relationship. You all would have been offended. You all would have roasted Chelsea Handler. But her telling a black man what to do is not offensive to any of you. Because after all, he used to date her, right?
And I do think there's this overarching belief that a lot of us are dating and marrying outside of our race. So far, I think it's 89% of the current men who are married are still married to black women, but that does not acknowledge how that statistics has evolved over time because these new brothers,
the new niggas.
They ain't doing what your daddy was doing back in the day. They on a new wave, which is a lot of times dating outside their race or this whole exotic thing. So.
But who does Chelsea Handler think she is? She thinks because she's dated black men in her life that she has the right to remind someone that they're black. She thinks because she's dated black men that she has the right to speak on anything dealing with black people. This is the problem with being black, because being black is to be controlled. You don't have any say-so in being black. That script is already written for you. Now you have a say-so being you. You have a say-so in being yourself, but you don't have a say-so in being black. Because that black narrative is already established.
Now that we have a unified white community, they then broke up the black community by passing what they call meritorious manumission in 1710. And what that says now is to make sure that blacks never have a strong sense of community, a unified self, we will grant meritorious manumission. That's why all these southern states had meritorious manumission laws to any black who goes against his own people.
Which in effect said that blacks could be freed.
That's right.
To enjoy rights and privileges in the society for becoming traitors to their own race.
Right, as a free black. But it would never could be comparable to a white.
Right.
So when that law was passed, then we found that a black could be rewarded for squealing another black, what we call crabbing. And out of a possible 150 so-called insurrections or revolts, slave revolts, a black person squealed in every one of them.
So what they're telling you is you can have enough mental fortitude to pick your gender, but you are not allowed to have that same mental fortitude when it comes to picking a candidate. Make that make sense for me. You can choose to be a man or a woman and still be you. But if you don't pick the appropriate candidate, you're not black anymore. Make that make sense. And to Jennifer and Chelsea or any other celebrity that wants to tell black people who they have to vote for, cut the check or shut your mouth.
So you mean to tell me I make every decision based off my color? The most racist thing a person could tell me is that I'm supposed to choose something based on my race.
I'd like to point out, though, that I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro, who actually differs from the white conservative in the same way that the fox differs from the wolf. Their appetite is the same. Their motives are the same. It's only their mannerisms and methods that differ.
Wait for it. Free Blacks. Get money. Come on.